Most people assume that as you become wealthier, you'll feel wealthier too. Your lifestyle will improve, your stress will disappear, you'll finally feel like you're catching up. But for many, the opposite is true. They actually feel poorer. And if this is happening to you, then it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong, but it might be worth trying to understand why it's happening. The thing is, there's two types of wealth. There's visible wealth and invisible wealth. Visible wealth is the stuff that everyone can see: clothes, houses, cars. And then the invisible wealth are things that nobody sees: the peace of mind from an investment portfolio, the security from a healthy savings account. And the problem is that we all compare ourselves using visible signals. It's like the difference between a quiet industrial battery storing millions of kilowatt hours and a firecracker. The battery stores all the value and the firecracker gets all the applause. It's like what Morgan Housel says: wealth is what you don't see. Every dollar has to go somewhere. So when you invest in the stock market, you can't spend on upgrades. And so the hardest part of building wealth is sacrificing visible consumption today for invisible freedom tomorrow. And people notice, and you notice that people notice. So as your net worth is rising, your day-to-day life might not change very much at all. And in fact, might even look worse to people around you. Not because you can't afford what they can, but because you're allocating your money differently. Your friend upgrades their car, another one moves into a bigger house, someone else posts another expensive holiday. Meanwhile, you've increased your pension contribution. Objectively, your financial position may have improved more than theirs, but emotionally, it rarely feels that way. And there's a paradox here. People who build wealth often feel like they're falling behind. Not because they are, but because they measure themselves on two different metrics. It's how they feel about their progress, which operates on a logical level, but then how they feel other people feel about their progress, which operates on an emotional level. And though we might always want logic to beat emotion, it often doesn't. And in fact, that's why so many people abandon the exact behavior that would make them wealthy. Because the psychological pain is just too much. It's just too uncomfortable. I've worked in finance for years and I've always been surprised about how people spend their money. I generally take the quiet route and I still do. But I'd be lying if I said I haven't felt the pain of social comparison time and time again. There's even been times when I've been doing pretty well, looked at my balance account and had zero comfort. The best way I can describe it is like having a winning lottery ticket but being forbidden to show it to anyone else, while my buddy sort of just buys a fake trophy and everyone gives them applause. And over time that feeling accumulates and accumulates and it breaks a lot of people, understandably. And the difference between people who build wealth and people who don't doesn't come down to like one group wanting or happy to sacrifice more than the other. Because they don't. No one likes to give up what they want. It really comes down to how they interpret it. And that's the key insight here, is that most people are spending money to stop feeling poor. Millionaires learn to accept it. They stop seeing it as evidence that something's gone wrong and they start seeing it as evidence of them making the right trade-offs. And they do this by accepting the cost, lengthening the time frame, and focusing on what they actually enjoy. And so by accepting the cost, what I mean is that they understand that every gain has a price. Everyone would take the benefit of wealth if they didn't have to suffer the cost. That's how trade-offs work. Every financial decision buys one thing by giving up another thing. If you invest, you can't spend. And that's the emotional price of building wealth. The feeling of being poor isn't necessarily a mistake. It's often the cost of progress. And once you understand that, that feeling becomes much easier to accept. And then they learn to think in different time frames, because every financial decision creates a completely different experience. You've got one in the short term and in the long term. In the short term, investing can actually make you feel poor because you've got less money to throw around, right? Money now becomes tight. But later on, the long-term optionality will feel pretty good. And so the people who are building wealth learn to not judge today's decision by today's feeling. Instead, they judge it by tomorrow's outcome. And then this is the big one. They focus on what they're actually buying. This might be the biggest shift of all. People feel bad when they focus on what they're giving up because scarcity makes us feel bad. They're giving up having a nicer car, a nicer home, right? More spending. But that's only half the equation. The other half of the equation is what they're buying instead. And so when you switch your focus from scarcity to abundance, you feel better because addition makes us feel better. More freedom, more time, more security, more peace of mind, more options. That's a lot. And once you start focusing on those invisible assets over those visible sacrifices, that feeling of being poor changes. It stops feeling like a loss and starts feeling like more of an investment into a different kind of life. So let's look at that. What does your sacrifice actually buy you? Well, first off, you're buying freedom. Most people delay their freedom until retirement, but you can have it much sooner than that. Every dollar you save reduces your dependence on your next paycheck. And little by little, it gives you more room to breathe, more independence. And so financial freedom is built, accumulated over years. And it's worth far more than a lot of visible purchases. And then you're also buying options. And for me, this is one of the most overlooked purposes of money. I can't think of a single better way to spend your money than buying possibility. The ability to change careers, start a business, take time off, travel somewhere new. Because the ability to say yes when an opportunity presents itself is everything. And the best part about opportunities is that they're not as rare as people think. In fact, they're often just too expensive. And the more you save, the more affordable they become. More often than not, what people really want, though, is security. And to be fair, life is unpredictable. Jobs disappear, markets crash, people get sick. So it helps to have a margin of safety, a financial moat keeping you safe. And security isn't exciting, right? You might not notice it when you have it, but you'll definitely notice when you don't. And that makes it a very valuable asset. But for the ambitious and the people who still want to push, and this is really what my channel is about, is that it buys you acceleration. You can use money to grow faster in whatever area of life that's important to you. That can be your wealth, it can be your career, it can be your relationships. The list is absolutely endless. But ultimately what it all comes down to is that you're buying a different future. And this is the part that's often hardest to see. Every invisible asset you're building, freedom, options, security, acceleration, it all quietly changes the trajectory of your life. And that's why people who are building wealth eventually become comfortable with the feeling of feeling poor, because they understand something others don't. And that is that they're not missing out. It's just they're buying a different future. It's just a future that other people can't see yet.